Hey everyone, and welcome back to MetaCast. I'm John, and I am so pumped for today's deep dive. We're jumping headfirst into the world of hero shooters. Specifically, the hot new contender that's got everyone buzzing, Marvel Rivals. And to help us break it all down, I've got the incredible Maya joining me today.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Yeah, I'm really curious to see if Marvel Rivals can actually live up to all the hype.
Right. I mean, the internet is going crazy over this game. And to really get to the bottom of it, we're going deep on a super interesting article from Level Up. They're a Spanish gaming site. And let me tell you, they've got some seriously sharp insights. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, can you give us like a quick crash course on what hero shooters are all about for anyone who's new to the genre?
Yeah, for sure. So in a hero shooter, you don't play as just some random soldier. You pick a hero, and each one has their own unique abilities and a specific role to play on the team. You've got like healers, tanks, damage dealers, the whole shebang. It's all about strategy and synergy, really mastering what your hero can do and working together to win.
Gotcha. So like Overwatch, that's kind of the big one, right? The game that put hero shooters on the map.
Absolutely. Overwatch is like the gold standard. And that's actually a big reason why there's so much talk about Marvel Rivals maybe ripping them off. I mean,
Oh.
even a former president of Blizzard, the company that made Overwatch, even he's been publicly questioning how much Rivals might have borrowed from their design.
Oh, snap. That's some serious shade being thrown around.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Marvel Rivals is absolutely killing it right now. Controversy aside, I mean, they're crushing it.
Oh, the player numbers are insane. On its first weekend alone, Marvel Rivals peaked at nearly 500,000 players on Steam. And get this, it hit a massive 10 million players across all platforms in just 72 hours.
Hold up. 10 million in 3 days. That's nuts. How does that compare to, like, Overwatch 2's launch?
Well, Overwatch 2 hit 25 million players, but it took them 10 days to reach that number.
Yeah.
So yeah, Marvel Rivals is definitely on a faster track, which is pretty crazy considering they launched with, a smaller roster of heroes and fewer maps than Overwatch.
So is this the start of, like, a hero shooter showdown? Could Marvel Rivals actually dethrone Overwatch?
Well, it's still early days, but those numbers are definitely hard to ignore. I mean, one thing to consider is that Marvel Rivals is free to play, which, naturally contributes to a bigger player base, at least in the beginning.
Right. That makes sense. But free-to-play games got to make their money somehow.
Yeah.
How are those microtransactions looking for Marvel Rivals?
It seems like they're finding a good balance, actually. Marvel Rivals is already a top seller on Steam, so people are definitely dropping some cash on those premium skins and the Battle Pass.
Interesting.
And what's cool is they've got this no-pay-to-win approach, which the community seems to be loving. Players feel like they can stay competitive without having to, spend a ton of money.
Smart move.
Yeah.
Keep the playing field level and everyone's happy.
Hmm.
So what's next for Marvel Rivals? Are they keeping this hype train rolling?
Oh, they're definitely trying. Season 0 is ending in early 2025, and everyone's super eager to see what they have in store for Season 1. It'll be really interesting to see how they handle their monetization as they add more content,
Totally. It's like a tightrope walk, right?
Mhm.
You got to keep players engaged in spending, but you don't want to make it feel like a cash grab.
Exactly. It's all about finding that sweet spot.
So thinking about the whole Marvel IP thing,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no denying how huge the Marvel brand is. It's a global phenomenon.
Hmm.
Do you think that's playing a big part in Marvel Rivals' success?
It's definitely a factor, especially in terms of bringing in a wider audience, people who might not be hardcore hero shooter fans.
Right. But is the game actually good? Like, can it stand on its own merits, or is it just coasting on the Marvel name?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Totally.
We've seen plenty of games with the big IPs that just flopped because the gameplay wasn't there.
Exactly. So let's dive a little deeper into what Marvel Rivals is doing right. The Level Up article highlighted some pretty unique features, and I'm really curious to hear your take on them.
Yeah, for sure. Let's start with their dynamic environment system. It's not just about shooting each other on the static map. The environments actually change during the match,
Oh, wow.
which creates all these new tactical opportunities and forces players to adapt on the fly.
Oh, yeah, I read about that. That sounds really cool. Like a great way to keep things fresh and unpredictable. I bet that leads to some crazy moments, huh?
Oh, absolutely. And it fits so well with the whole Marvel theme. They've incorporated iconic locations from the comics and movies.
right.
And the way those locations transform, it feels authentic to the source material.
That's awesome. It's not just slapping a Marvel skin on an existing game. They're really using the IP to enhance the gameplay. So what else stood out to you?
Well, the hero design is fantastic. Each character feels so distinct, not just in terms of their abilities, but also their personality. They've really captured the essence of these iconic heroes and villains, and it shows in everything from their animations to their voice lines, even their emotes.
Oh, cool. So they're not just like generic hero archetypes. They actually feel like, Marvel characters.
Exactly. They feel like they belong in that universe,
Yeah.
which is so important for a game like this.
Okay, so we've got dynamic environments, authentic hero design. What else makes Marvel Rivals special?
The movement system is really fluid and satisfying. It's not just running and gunning. You can wall run, swing from web lines, double jump.
Oh, wow.
It's super agile and it adds this whole other layer to the combat.
Oh, I love that. I'm a sucker for games with good movement mechanics.
Yeah.
It sounds like they've really nailed that feeling of actually being a superhero.
They really have, and it makes for some truly incredible moments. Like, imagine Spider-Man swinging into the middle of a fight, or Iron Man blasting on and raining down repulsor rays from above. It's pure chaos in the best way possible.
Oh, man. That's the kind of gameplay that gets me hyped. And it seems like it's resonating with players, too, judging by those crazy player numbers.
Right. It's not just a reskinned Overwatch.
Yeah.
They've taken the core elements of the hero shooter genre and infused it with that pure Marvel energy.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the game's initial success, the controversy with Overwatch, and some of its unique features that are drawing players in. But what does all this mean for the future of Marvel Rivals? Can they keep this momentum going? Can they really carve out their own identity in this super crowded hero shooter landscape?
That's the big question we need to unpack next. It's one thing to have a killer launch,
Yeah,
but building a lasting legacy, that's a whole other challenge.
for sure. We've seen so many games blow up and then just disappear. So what are the big hurdles that Marvel Rivals needs to overcome to avoid that fate?
Well, I think content updates are huge. You got to give players a reason to keep coming back. So a steady stream of new heroes, new maps, new game modes, that's crucial.
Makes sense. You can't just sit back and relax in this genre, especially with Overwatch always evolving and adding new stuff.
Exactly. And it's not just about quantity. The quality of those updates has to be there too. Each new hero needs to feel unique and balanced. And everything they add has to mesh well with the existing gameplay.
Yeah, you don't want to mess up the game's balance or alienate the players who are already invested, right?
Absolutely. It's all about finding that balance between keeping things fresh and familiar.
Okay, so content updates are key. The Level Up article also talked about community engagement as a big factor. What they have to say about that?
They emphasized how Marvel Rivals is really listening to player feedback and actually using that feedback to shape the game's development.
Oh, interesting.
That's a really big deal for building a strong community. It makes players feel like they're part of the process, like their voices are being heard.
Yeah, I get that. If you feel like the developers are listening to you, you're way more likely to stick around.
For sure. Open communication and transparency are so important for building trust with your players.
So we've got content updates, community engagement, anything else Marvel Rivals needs to focus on to stay on top.
Well, competitive integrity is essential. They need to make sure the playing field is level, no exploits, no cheating. A strong anti-cheat system is a must. And they need a clear competitive ranking system. That's going to be key to attracting and keeping serious players.
Right. If the game feels unfair or like your skills aren't being recognized, it's a major turnoff.
Exactly. A thriving competitive scene can make or break a hero shooter in the long run.
Speaking of competition, let's go back to that Overwatch-shipped elephant in the room for a sec. Do you think Marvel Rivals can actually step out of Overwatch's shadow and build its own unique identity?
I think they're on the right path, honestly. The dynamic environments, the hero design, the movement system, those are all things that set it apart.
True. It's definitely more than just a Marvel-themed Overwatch clone, but is it enough to really challenge Overwatch's dominance?
That's tough to say. I mean, Overwatch has such a huge established player base, a massive esports scene, and years of content behind it.
Yeah, it's a lot to live up to. But Marvel Rivals has the power of that Marvel brand behind it. And they're doing some really innovative stuff. I wouldn't count them out just yet.
I agree. They've got a real shot at shaking things up in the hero shooter genre.
This whole conversation is making me think, like, what does success even look like for Marvel Rivals? Is it about having more players than Overwatch? Or is it about building a dedicated community and creating a unique experience?
That's a great question. I think it really depends on their goals. Do they want to be the biggest hero shooter out there? Or do they want to carve out their own niche with a certain type of player?
It's like two different paths to success, right? One's all about market dominance,
Mm.
and the other's about building a passionate fan base.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be one or the other. They could potentially achieve both, but they need a clear vision and the commitment to see it through.
Well said. So what are you most excited to see from Marvel Rivals going forward?
I'm really curious to see how they expand the hero roster. I mean, they've got a whole universe of characters to choose from. It'll be interesting to see which ones they pick and how they integrate them into the game.
Yeah, that's always exciting with hero shooters.
Right.
Seeing those new characters and figuring out how they fit into the meta.
Exactly. And with the Marvel Universe, the possibilities are endless. They could pull heroes from different teams, different timelines, different dimensions. It's a gold mine for creative hero design.
I'm also curious to see what they do with the story side of things.
Yeah.
The Level Up article mentioned how they're incorporating storylines and lore from the comics. I think that's a really cool direction.
Yeah, that has so much potential. Imagine playing through events inspired by those iconic comic book arcs, or experiencing different heroes' origin stories. It could really elevate the single-player and co-op experience.
That would be amazing, like you're playing through an interactive Marvel comic book.
Exactly. And it could be a way for them to stand out from other hero shooters, which tend to focus mostly on competitive multiplayer.
So they could use the storytelling power of the Marvel Universe to create a more immersive experience for players.
Precisely. And it could be a way to bring in players who aren't as into the competitive side of things.
Okay, so we've talked about content updates, community engagement, competitive integrity, the rivalry with Overwatch, and the potential for expanding the game's narrative. So Maya, after diving deep into all this, what's your overall assessment of Marvel Rivals' chances? Do you think they can become a major force in the Hero shooter world?
Honestly, I think they have a really good shot. They've got a lot going for them. A strong launch, innovative gameplay, a beloved brand, and a development team that seems dedicated to listening to their players.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. They've definitely made a big entrance. And they seem to be doing all the right things.
But as we've talked about, the hero shooter scene is incredibly competitive. Maintaining this momentum in the long term, that's the real challenge.
For sure. It's going to be fascinating to watch how Marvel Rivals evolves. Will they be the next big thing? Or will they fade away like so many others?
Only time will tell. But I'm definitely excited to see where they go from here.
Me too. Well, Maya, this has been a fantastic deep dive into Marvel Rivals. I feel like I've learned a ton.
It's been a pleasure, John. I always enjoy getting to chat about these gaming trends with you.
And to everyone listening at home, we hope this deep dive has given you a better understanding of what Marvel Rivals is all about. And maybe even got you thinking about what the future holds for this game. If you want to learn even more, definitely check out that Level Up article. They've got some great insights in there.
And be sure to let us know what you think. Is Marvel Rivals the next big thing? Or just a flash in the pan? Hit us up on social media and share your thoughts.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the worlds that you love.